Okay, I think the recording is on. Yeah, there's little red dots. It's pulsing. And then at the end, I'll send you the recording then. All right. Okay.
Perfect.
So the question was again, I want to repeat it for the recording.
Bella,
Should I
repeat the
re-say the
question.
question? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, so the first question is it morally right for parents to choose their child's traits?
From the ethical perspective, no, it's not right because the traits belong to what we call the human genome, right? Do you know what is the human genome? What is the genome? The genome?
Is it more or less the structure of our code?
Exactly. It's the DNA code, it's the genetic code of each species, and each species has a particular genome. So our genome is the human genome. And who is the owner of that genome?
God? Or
Humanity as a whole. The genome belongs to all of humanity. And so we don't because for several reasons. First of all, what if the children that the traits that we select for, those children may not want that trait? What if we select for blue eyes and they want to have brown eyes? How do we get consent from an embryo? There's no consent, right? So, but beyond that, whatever alteration we do on the genetic engineering, that will be passed on. It's actually going into the human genome, and that will be passed on by those children into what we call the gene pool of all humanity. So how do we get consent from all humanity to change the human genome?
you can't.
Again, we can't because it's 8 billion people. How do you get consent from 8 billion people?
Yeah.
So the
Well,
bottom line
actually,
is, yeah.
I think that leads us, you're kind of almost, you're hovering around the next question that we want to talk about, which is
Yeah.
obviously we can't get consent from an embryo to obviously change their hair color or their eye color, but where should we draw the line in between like using like gene editing for babies, like to like make sure they don't have a specific disease, and using it to make sure like their immune systems are better, or they don't get like or they don't aren't diagnosed with something that will later affect them down the line.
Okay. So it was another thing we can actually edit of the DNA gene in the particular region. So it's very fair size. Um, it's not, first of all. So we never know till the baby is born if we have taken care of the illness or not. Let's assume that it's a serious illness and we can engineer it to get rid of the illness and make that gene a normal gene. All right. We never know until the baby is actually born and either expresses the illness or not. And by that time, it's too late, right? Because what if we didn't do it correctly? And number one. Number two, what if in that process of trying to correct that illness, we actually make another mistake on the genome? All right. We never really know until it's done. And yet, so these experiments, they're actually experiments. It's known as experimental medicine. And even by law, experimental medicine needs consent from the patient. It has to be of direct benefit to the patient, and the patient has to consent, but there's no way of obtaining consent from the patient, right? So no, even in the best case scenarios where the editing would be to prevent a potential illness, we don't even, so these potential illnesses, we don't know if that illness is going to actually express or not. Remember, we have pairs of chromosomes, so it could be that the other pair corrects for the illness. But we won't really know for sure until the baby is actually born, and then we observe him or her and see if the illness will show up or what degree of severity. So it's basically just playing with fire, but prematurely, because the technique is not really anywhere near the perfection that people will think. It's not that simple to edit the human genome.
Mhm. Okay, our next question is could designer babies create a society where only wealthy families can afford like better children? And like, is that fair?
Right, that's another thing. Of course, the question is already kind of set up, right, for the proper answer, which is no, it's not fair. It's called boutique medicine, so that only some people can afford it. Uh, and so it leaves the others out, right? And it's not fair because we're talking about illnesses that could be devastating for the general population, but also it would generate this class of individuals who have been engineered to be somehow superior to the rest of the human population. And who has a right to do that just because they have the money to do it? It doesn't sound very fair, right?
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind also that that's why I made reference to that in vitro fertilization article, because all this genetic engineering, of course, is done at the zygote level. In other words, single cell human being, and the whole being, the whole human being is at that single cell at the zygote. What if we make a mistake with that zygote and we end up killing the zygote? Well, we've killed a human being. And so it's extremely risky to do experiments when the human being is only a single cell. And by the way, we were all single cell when the sperm of our father fertilized the egg of our mother, right? So we all started that way naturally, but we were embedded deep within our mother's reproductive system for protection, precisely for 9 months. You think about it, it's even physiologically, fertilization occurs deep within the woman's body to offer protection for that child as the child is developing through the 9 months of gestation.
Okay. Um, and this is our last and final question, Father.
Okay.
Do you agree or disagree with only modifying the genes of babies that could potentially have altering disease like sickle cell or cystic fibrosis?
Right. So again, the,
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're having issues. Listen,
Yeah,
there's
you're
like,
cutting out.
yeah,
the, some kind of the connection fades. Can you hear me better now?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just ask me to repeat if it's not heard correctly. Right. So genetic engineering on any species, it presupposes engineering the zygote when we have a single cell, right? And so in order to have a single cell human on our hands in a petri dish to work on him or her, necessarily we need to have recourse to in vitro fertilization. Because otherwise, what's the other alternative? To go inside a woman's womb and try to pull out the zygote when her egg gets fertilized? It's impossible. We don't know exactly when that egg is going to be fertilized, even after intercourse, because we know that the human sperm lasts inside the woman's reproductive tract up to 5 days. So it can be anywhere between 5 or 10 minutes after the intercourse, all the way to 5 days after the intercourse, that the fertilization actually occurs. All right. And so, how are we going to go in there and extract that zygote and then work on the zygote in the lab? So, already the fertilization has to be done outside in a lab in a Petri dish. That's already a huge layer of manipulation. And again, without consent, because these embryos never consented to be conceived, to be manufactured in a lab. So that's the first layer of offense to the dignity of that human embryo. That embryo has been denied a natural process of fertilization and then implantation into his or her mother's womb, etc., right? Like the natural fertilization process. The next layer of offense and insult to that embryo is to further manipulate the embryo in a lab and do further manufacturing by enhancing or changing some of the genes, even in the extreme situation that the embryo has defective genes. Now, we don't really know if the embryo has the defective genes or not until we send out for what is known as a karyotype. You know, karyotyping a cell, right? So maybe you studied a little bit. Karyotyping is actually quality control on the in vitro embryo. So the in vitro embryo is allowed to grow to the 4 or 8 stage cell. And then they pluck out one of those cells, send it to a lab, and see if the genome looks normal, right? And the other cells are left together in the clump, and those cells are the ones that are implanted into the womb. But with the zygote, we only have the one cell, so we cannot sell that cell to the lab and experiment with it, because then we're going to destroy that cell, which is the zygote, is the whole embryo. So really, when you think about it logistically, in detail, the process is really impossible to do without risking severely the life of that embryo. Right? Follow. So try to always, I say, when we do bioethics, some of the issues are delicate like this one and complicated. So we have to get as realistic as possible and follow the procedure how it would actually be done in a lab. These experiments are really impossible to do without high risk, immense risk to the health or the life of that embryo, because it's the whole embryo is just one single cell.
Yeah.
Well, Father, I think that's actually all the questions we have for you.
Okay.
We thank you so much for your time.
Welcome. My
And
pleasure.
is your spring break coming? Is your school spring break coming up? Or did it already
We
pass?
actually had the spring break already. What's coming up is Holy Week, of course, next week. And so we have a couple of days off from Holy Week and then the Easter season ahead. But we had the spring break already. I think you're on spring break now, right? Or no, not yet?
Our spring break coincides with our Holy Week.
Oh, I see.
So we have an
Okay.
extra long spring break.
Oh, I see. Okay. Very good. Well, I take the opportunity to wish you a blessed Holy Week and a very beautiful Easter season for you and your families, and with your project also. Keep you in my prayers that it may go well with the project. Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Father.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I want to mention one last thing. Yes, what actually, this whole area of genetic engineering and so forth, it falls under the topic of eugenics. Have you ever heard of eugenics?
Yes.
Yeah.
EU, right? Eugenics. And it was precisely Adolf Hitler who was doing eugenics on the born population back during the Second World War, during the Nazi regime in the 30s and 40s. And it actually led to a world war. Okay. So it's in the aura of what is known as eugenics, right? Which is manipulating the population according to somebody's idea of what should be the perfect human.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Father.
My pleasure. Any other questions, comments? All right. Then I'll close it here, stop the recording, and send you this, and I'll download it and send you. It will probably be an MP3 or an MP4. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
very much,
welcome.
Father, for your time. Thank you for the prayer.
God bless Holy Week.
My pleasure. All the best. Good night.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Bye.
one.